Well, let's bring in Mustafa Barghouti now, the Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. Thank you very much for being here on Al Jazeera. What do you make of where we are now, then, with this ceasefire deal overall?
The ceasefire will happen, and Netanyahu cannot block it. He manipulated and tried to postpone, to procrastinate, because his main goal is to keep his government together. But it is very clear now that he cannot maneuver anymore, and he has to make the decision tomorrow morning. Regarding Ben Gvir, he's also playing games. I mean, according to many observers, he's talking about resignation, but he's not going to withdraw his support to this government because he hopes to come back. So in reality, the agreement will take place, and that has happened not because Netanyahu became better, but because he cannot sustain the pressures that are coming on him internally and externally. And because of the main reason, which is that they could not break the Palestinian people in Gaza. They could not achieve their main goals. They couldn't bring back the captives with military force. They could not enforce total ethnic cleansing, which was their main goal. They could not break the Palestinian resistance. So they have to deal with reality. We are already in the 15th month, and Israel will, continuing this war costs Israel a lot.
And what about the sticking points then? Philadelphia corridor, for example, or do you think this is no longer a sticking point?
It shouldn't be, because eventually there are two things that have to happen. That the ceasefire will become a permanent ceasefire, and that means end of the war, and not as some of the Israeli extremists claim, that this is not the end of the war. And it is really ironic that the Israeli side is advocating continuing the war. I mean, it's very, very strange. And second, because I think the main goal here is that there should be total withdrawal of Israeli army from Gaza Strip. And in principle, they have to agree to that.
With Donald Trump coming into the White House, how does that play into the dynamics of what has happened up to this stage and what might happen in the future?
Trump doesn't want this war to be on when he takes over the responsibility of the president. He said that several times, and he threatened. And actually, the threat to Palestinians was meaningless because he was threatening us with hell, and we were already living in hell in Gaza. But the main threat came to Netanyahu. Netanyahu used to play games with Biden. He manipulated Biden because he always knew that he had the leverage in President Trump and in his supporters. Now that Trump is demanding the ceasefire, he cannot play games with Trump. He knows that he would not have any leverage if he is in trouble with Trump. And he knows he cannot break the relationship with him. So yes, Trump played an important role. As a matter of fact, I think if it wasn't for Trump, maybe this deal would not have happened, because Biden restrained himself from exercising any serious pressure on Israel. I would even go further and say Biden and Blinken will probably be recorded in history as people who participated in facilitating, if not participating, in the war crimes that happened in Gaza.
And despite Israel's recent comments, where do you think Hamas stands now? It is totally committed to this?
Yes, Hamas is absolutely committed, and they have signed the agreement already. They have accepted the agreement. Netanyahu tried to play the game again, like he did before. I mean, we could have had this agreement back in July. Hamas had agreed to this, to a very similar agreement to this. But it was Netanyahu who blocked it. And Biden, instead of telling the truth that Israel was blocking, he unfortunately repeated the lie of Netanyahu and claimed it was Hamas that was obstructing. No, Hamas agreed. Hamas wants this deal to happen. And all Palestinians want the war to stop. And the big question here to the international community: why don't you blame the Israelis who want the war to continue? If we talk about peace, if we talk about resolution of this situation, and if we talk about the future. In my opinion, this last war has revealed a lot. Gaza became the place which exposed the failure of the international community in terms of application of international law and international humanitarian law.
So a ceasefire deal due to come in on Sunday, and yet Palestinians are still being killed. What do you make of that?
It's a very dangerous moment. These 3 days are probably the most dangerous in this war, because as you can see, Israel is escalating the attacks. And they're bombarding Gaza left and right. Yesterday, we lost 81 people who were killed because of these strikes that are not justified at all. And we've just received a report about huge airstrikes that are taking place, and the Israeli army exploding new houses and new buildings and new territories. It's unjustified, but it's nothing but acts of revenge, in my opinion, from the side of the Israeli army, which wants to use every minute to destroy as much as possible and to kill as many as they can from the Palestinian civilian population.
Mustafa Barghouti, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Al Jazeera.
Thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.